now, locally. Okay, I got it. And let's just let them in. I'm going to let them in early. Here we go. Okay, admit. Oh, Michael. Okay, welcome. Welcome, everybody. They're starting to join now. There we go. Michael's coming in right now. Okay, all right. Welcome. All right, here we go. Everybody's getting their audios put in. Okay, so welcome. You are welcome to put your camera on and even say hello. You know, we've found that the meetings are usually these small and nice intimate meetings that we can actually talk to each other. This technology is allowing that. So Paul, welcome.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Abraham. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and listen, I say Michael's here. Wow, we got Michael. We have a global crew here. Danny, you're new.
Hi.
Hello, Danny. Welcome. All right. So, Paul, you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us about yourself, your company, things like that.
Sure, I'd be glad to. My name is Paul Melcher. I work out of the Central Ohio area, Columbus, Ohio, specifically. I am most recently, I was part of a group that was purchased by United Health Group, and the United Health Group consolidated some groups and some organizations, and as a result of that, I'm actually currently on the hunt for my next opportunity. I have experience in large call center leadership roles, including 225, 250 folks in a couple of different industries. So not really industry specific, but do have some experience in healthcare with a number of years with AT&T and the insurance world as well.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we hope that you find some employment. Are you aware that we have the culture hacker training as well? So that'll help you with your
I thought COVID.
It help you with your skills there. You can take that. It's free. And we're going to be having our first round of culture hackers that are going to be on the loose out there. They're going to, so we're pretty excited about that.
Great.
Thank you. So Becky, welcome. I think you're muted there. Hang on. Yeah, no, we don't hear your sound. You're not muted, but we don't hear you there. Yeah, you're going to get together. Okay, I'll just move over to Michael while you're getting that together. Michael, welcome. Michael's been a fan, man. Michael signs up for everything. He is going to be a culture hacker, right, Michael? Huh? You're muted there. Okay, he's going to be out there in Ghana. He's going to be the one in the world, the first culture hacker of Ghana. I mean, that's exciting, Michael. He is, in fact, did your wife come to the States?
Yes, she's still in the States.
Did you want to get that book over there?
Yes, I'm going to do that next week.
Okay. Send it over because Michael's bought the book, but then we couldn't ship it over there, Shane. So he wants a signature, man. His wife's in the States, and he'd like a personal signature over. I told him that I talked to you about that, and we think we could get it worked out.
Thank you, Shane.
So Danny, how you doing? Say hello. Okay, you there? You can unmute yourself. You were there for a little bit. Okay.
Hi, sorry about that.
That's no problem. Where are you calling in from?
I'm in the UK, over in England.
Oh, wow. Welcome. Okay, we really have an international crew here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you working? Where are you working?
Yeah, so I'm a customer service manager. I've just been brought into a property developer to set up their customer service department.
Uh-huh.
Wow. They haven't got one at the moment, so I've been writing all of the procedures, getting to know the business, what they do, their approach to customer service. So it's a really exciting opportunity.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. And how big is the company?
They've got it's quite small. There's 60 employees, and we're building about 300 units this year.
Fantastic. Well, we're glad that you're here, and we have a lot of good stuff for you. Are you aware of our culture hacker training and things like that? You know
No,
anything about?
I'm not. I'll have a look into it though.
All right, we'll make sure you get that because we got round 2 coming up, and you're welcome to join that. So,
Great.
so thank you for coming. And Becky,
Can you hear me okay?
yeah, well, now we can hear you. Hi
Okay.
there, welcome. Tell us a little
Thank
about
you.
yourself and what's going on.
I live in Massachusetts.
Okay.
So what's going on is, for me, I am a business operations excellence leader. I focus a lot on process improvement, and doing so, taking an outside-in perspective as it relates to the customer, and ensuring that their needs and their experiences are as easy as possible. I have experiences working across med device companies, health insurance companies, health startup companies. I used to work
Wow.
for Oracle Consulting years ago. So I have a knack to kind of straddle between business and technology.
Hmm.
Right now, I am looking. Well, I just took a consulting engagement. I'm working for Cisco right now as an independent consultant.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I had a lot of experience, managing call centers, large teams, things of that nature. So I am a lifelong learner. So I
All
appreciate the
right.
opportunity to plug in.
Cool. Are you in the culture hacker training?
I am not.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna have to get you in there because we want to take over the world with culture hackers. So, all right. So speaking of culture hacker, I have the culture hacker himself, Shane Green, and he is going to take it from here. Shane, take it from
All right,
here.
Brent. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As I said, it's actually a nice opportunity with the size group like this to actually engage. So I've got some questions for you as we go through today. So make sure you're coming in and off muting. So the question that always starts out is, well, what the hell's a culture hacker, and how did I become one? Sort of my story is kind of an interesting. I'm out of hospitality. I worked with Ritz-Carlton, opening hotels for about 10 years. And then from there, I started my own business. And we're pretty much focused on customer experience. We provided training, frontline service training, sales training, all of that. And what we've done over the years is the progression has been, I remember one of the first big, large customer service rollouts we did. The training went awesome, even though I'm probably biased. But everything went so well. And then, about 3 months later, I went back and I was going, wait up, what happened here? Why isn't it taking? And the message, which obviously is easy to look back on, was we didn't do enough with the supervisors and the managers and then ultimately executives and owners to set up this kind of course to ensure that everybody at every level understood what was going on. So as we've sort of heavily gone into the consulting business around customer experience, what we've realized, we kind of take a very simple approach that customer experience is driven by product, place, process, and people. The product is the product. So, that's what you're the expertise in. The place, that can be either virtual online or in traditional brick and mortar. Processes, depending on the industry, most people's processes are pretty much 95% the same unless you've come up with some really great new tech that you usually get about 6 months advantage on. But the real big area that we kept coming back again, that was really the driver of great customer experience, whether we were working with organizations, researching, was really about the people. And so we've really kind of taken that approach that we've tried to understand, how do you get people to really want to deliver great customer experience? And it goes back to our days at the Ritz-Carlton, which really, there was an old saying, it's an old axiom of hospitality: a person with a great attitude gives great service, a person with a poor attitude delivers poor service. And that attitude has always sort of stayed with us. And as we started to look at what are the things that make people want, we started to think about their attitude. What is their attitude about coming to work, about what they do, who they do it for? And what we've discovered over about 10 years of researching and doing different projects with big companies, little companies, startups, is that there's certain mechanisms that truly drive how people feel about coming to work. And that's why we think EX, employee experience, drives ultimately the CX. How they feel about coming to work will determine how they feel about taking care of your customers. So again, nothing shocking there, but what we've started to do from the culture hacker perspective, as I said, is really dive into these mechanisms. And we've discovered, if you ever read the books, about 12 different mechanisms, of which the most impactful one is actually the manager. And again, nothing surprising there that the manager has probably about 70% of the impact on how someone feels about what they do and who they do it for. And I think that's a really important element of why a lot of the work we've ended up doing is then going in and seeing what are the leadership habits and behaviors that a manager can do. The one thing that I've always believed in is that leaders are created. You can learn to be a leader, which is what makes this kind of session today a little bit different, because I'm talking about leadership traits, and leadership traits are something that you naturally have. But what we've discovered is that by studying traits, you can pull the various behaviors that are required to give a perception of that trait. So even though it might not be natural to you, there are certain things that you do that people say, oh, this person's authentic, this person's a communicative, this person is a collaborator. And so what we've done is sort of sat back, and obviously we're all in this very unusual time, whether it's in history, economy, or however you want to sort of put it, that's created a very unique situation. And we've had a number of sessions where we're consulting with different companies, and we've been talking to them about how do you approach what's going on today. And many companies have remote workforces. They've got furloughed workforce, they've got reduced hours. And so we're starting to think, what are the type of behaviors that managers really need to demonstrate right now to their customers or their employees? And we kind of even took a step back and we sort of identified 3 key traits that seems to be really critical. So that's what we're going to talk about today, these traits and more specifically some of those behaviors. And as a result of that, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions because, again, it's important to understand how this trait and subsequent behaviors can apply and make sense for you. So we're going to dive right in. And again, please, if I'll sort of stop throughout the way. If you want to ask questions, we'll have an opportunity at the end. But I'm going to keep it kind of simple today. And this is really taken from what we've been looking at and sort of learning in the last couple of months about businesses, about what employees and customers are looking for. And it's actually, these are the foundational elements. We created a whole reopening sort of remote workforce strategy for organizations. And from that, these sort of behaviors and traits came out. So I just want to kind of touch, we already said traits, they're natural. So they often say, you know, people just are made to be leaders. And that's true. Some people have traits that are more natural, makes it easier for them to be a leader. But what I would argue is that anybody can be a leader, even if those traits aren't naturally. They just have to work a lot harder at it. And so those natural traits people often focus on with personality tests and all that. We actually don't do a lot of that. In fact, probably none of that. Because what it does, it sort of says, well, if I don't have this trait, then I can't be a leader. And there's nothing further from the truth. But it is interesting to understand the traits to really find the driving behaviors. And that's the way that a person conducts themselves. And so what we want to talk about today is things that leaders should be doing to conduct themselves with both their customers and employees. And because we put both there, employees drive customers, but it's very important that we're doing both right now. We're connecting, we're really looking at how we can make a difference in a time where I would argue nobody really knows what's going on. So what are those 3 traits that we've been focusing in on? We've been talking a lot about curiosity, empathy, and generosity. Curiosity. We think right now one of the most important things for a leader, a business leader, is to be willing to learn and discover. And the way that I'll sort of caveat that is by saying, what is the opposite of curiosity? The opposite is grandiosity. Grandiosity means you know it all, or you believe that you know it all. What we find is that a lot of business leaders have been doing the same thing for quite some time. They are really good at their product. They understand their place. They know their customers. And as a result, they go, I've got it. I know what needs to be done. I would argue that over the last 2 months, nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what's about to happen. And as a result, one of the key elements and traits that we see that people should have is this openness to learn, to go back and discover, and not to be afraid to put aside everything I've learned to this point. And this is massive. Because as we look, everything up to this point hasn't set us up for what's happening today. And so this idea of going back to being curious is really important. And so we'll dive into that a little bit. The second thing is empathy. You know, there's 5 different levels of listening, from ignoring somebody, pretend listening, selective listening, active, all the way up to empathetic listening. So if we have curiosity, we're going to ask questions. I think the key part that comes with that then is the willing to truly listen and understand feelings and emotions. Why is that so critical? Well, right now, everyone is being affected so differently. What we can't have, and we talk to with a lot of organizations, is you can't expect employees that say disappeared or went remote or went on furlough or even were laid off for 2 or 3 months to come back and be the same person. It's just not going to happen. What we're learning is that people are being affected. There's the parents who've suddenly become teachers and are sort of, their sanity levels are being sort of checked. There's the people that obviously are worried about how to maintain their living. Money has now become a sort of certain issue. We've got people that are sort of feeling that loss of social connectivity and unfortunately even loss of life for those closest to them. What's most interesting is, you go back to Maslow's, I guess, hierarchy of basic needs, is we have to come back to the most basic of their needs right now. And as a result, people's emotions are very, very strong. And I think right now what we're talking with business leaders is, don't be so focused on the facts, focus on the feelings. How are people feeling right now? Because it'll start to direct that connection a lot more easier. And then the other piece we talk about finally is generosity. And this is about being kind and a sense of giving. We're seeing acts of generosity out there, but I would argue that this is the exact time when organizations can step up and must be willing to look at their products, services differently and start to ask themselves, what can I do for my customers? What can I do for my employees so that we all get through that? So those are the traits that I want to kind of talk about today. And I want to kind of put it back onto you, because I want you to start thinking about how these different traits can apply and benefit your organization. So I'm going to start with curiosity. Simple quote: ideas come from curiosity. Why? Let me put it out to you guys. Why do you think right now being curious, being willing to learn and discover is so important for your business or businesses in general? So who wants to kind of take the sort of first step at this? And Maria, welcome. Again, I know you sort of jumped on there. So Becky, let's start with you. Pull yourself off mute. I know you're off mute there. So what do you think? Why this idea of curiosity? How can it help?
It's learning. It's all about understanding what others are doing. As a good leader, it's important to understand and create that connection with people on the floor, on the ground, if you will, so that you can empathize, have some empathy on what they're dealing with every single day and the challenges that they face every single day, and partner with them in empowering them to help drive and make solutions and improve, what they do on behalf of the customer.
Perfect kind of setup, Becky. So let's kind of flip it up now and go, what should we be curious about? Because I think this is where people go, well, all right, what should I be learning today? The kind of world's being flipped up on its head a little. So Danny, give it a go. So what do you think you should be curious about with your employees right now? Whether they're remote, whether they're furloughed, whether they're quite often sitting there with a lot reduced business. What do you think? What would you think would be important for you to learn about your employees?
I think it's really important to understand the challenges that everybody faces at the moment and how you can help everybody to overcome those, because ultimately that's what affects the customer. Somebody in accounts might be struggling to pay invoices, which then means that my subcontractor isn't going to be able to go out to help my customer fix their job. So I think it's understanding everybody's needs in the organization as well as the customers.
Yep. So listen, let's start with the employees. The first question you've got to ask is, how are you doing? In its most simplest sense, because I'm going to tell you, some people are doing okay. Some people are thriving. Some people are absolutely become sort of completely different and distraught, anxious, and almost traumatic through this experience. So the first question we've just got to start asking people is, how are you? And again, that's the human element of what we're doing. We're trying to create connection. And this is really important because some of the other things we want to discover, as Becky kind of touched on, is, what can we do for you? Don't be so quick to jump into business or the transaction. You have to start with the human element right now. So whether it's your employees or your customers, take a moment just to say, how are you doing? And what are you being challenged with right now? What are your fears? What are your concerns? We just did work with a large hotel based here in Las Vegas. And again, most of their employees were on furlough. And so one of the things that we did is that we had managers assigned to a group of employees, and every week they had to check in and ask one question. And the first question of the first week was, how are you doing? What are your concerns? What are your current fears? And what came back was, because we didn't talk about work, was it obviously focused around family, friends, and really all the things that are going on. Having that information was extremely powerful. Now, why? Because when they bring them back into the workplace, they're the first things that have to be addressed. And what happened with this company, they actually started to evolve their processes. They actually started to shift some of their thinking based on that initial feedback about how they approached this furlough, how they were going to reorient their employees when they came back. Because what we sort of worked on is, hey, if we're not going to deal with the human element, if we're going to focus straight onto the transaction, we're never going to get that attitude right. We're never going to get them with the right frame of mind to ultimately take care of customers or guests. So start with that in mind. So the first week was, how are you doing? What are your fears? The second question that we asked back was, what are you looking for, or what do you miss the most sort of in going on in this sort of unusual circumstances? What are you missing, and what are you looking most forward to when things get back to what we're calling this new normal? And so that was a really interesting piece, because now we're working on the idea of optimism and hope. And so shifting from the idea of current situation to future state, what are they most excited about? And this was really important because, again, it gave us the information to start to think about what the most important priorities were for these people. Some of them were to do with work, some was to get back socially, to connect with friends, to go out to dinner. But what it did is, as we start to build a reopening plan, we were conscious of building these elements into that plan. It means we started to think a little bit about social engagement, having meals, what sort of things could we create to offset some of these things that people were most craving for. So that was the second week of questions. The third week of questions, we started at this point to kind of shift it now into the organization. And we started to think about, what are your biggest challenges coming back to work? And so this became a really important question. What were your challenges? What were your fears? What are you most worried about? And this, of course, started to get into the whole idea of customer interaction, guest interaction. What are the safety? How are you going to keep me safe at work? What happens if I get exposed? There was a number of questions that started to come out of this. And again, what started to happen was we started to build our whole second day into answering those questions. We've built out 3, what we call relaunch orientations. And if I could sort of say one piece, and again, the hotel, and again, we're talking about 6,500 employees. One of the things that they were excited about is they sort of said, great, we've kept everyone on furlough, we've been paying them. This will be great. We don't need to reintroduce them back to the hotel when they start up. And I said, we might not have to introduce them to the hotel, but a lot of things have changed. And so the whole idea of reorientation is, what does the first day back look like? Now, from our days at the Ritz-Carlton, when we used to sort of open, a gentleman called Horst Schultze was the CEO at the time. And he would always talk about this really important thing. He would always tell us and remind us that there's very few times in someone's life when they are willing to change. One of those times is when they start a new job. And he always used to talk about that the first day of an employee's job is the most important day of their career with you. He would say because that's when they emotionally connect the most and they understand the priorities. Now, the problem is, in many organizations, the first day is filled with rules and paperwork. In some instances, they just throw them onto the front line. But what it does is it doesn't give them a good sense of the real priorities. If you get someone to fill out a bunch of paperwork on their first day, what's the priority? Fill out paperwork. You sit for half a day and go through rules and policies. The employee walks away, it's all about rules and policies. When we researched and benchmarked the best customer service organizations, what we saw was that on the first day, it was an experience. It was an experience that emphasized brand, customer, culture, and people. And what that did is it set the priorities of how that organization not only treated their employees, but their customers as well. What we have said to many organizations as they're starting to ramp back up, bring more people into work if they've been running, or bringing a whole new group back, is that you've got to be willing to create a brand new experience. Why? Because people are open to change right now. People are open. They know there's something different that's going to happen. You have an opportunity to emotionally connect to people. And so in all three instances, the first thing that we talked about was the importance of them on the front line, the impact they have, and we addressed all the challenges that they were worried about and walked back in sort of sitting out in their head. And that was a very powerful piece. And in fact, just this last week, we saw some of those first orientation tests starting to happen. And what we walked away from was, man, people just want to talk right now. People just want to feel that social connection. They want to get back together. And while we're talking about employees here, what's interesting is that it's the same for your customers as well. We talked to 4 or 5 companies last week, and the first question we asked after their employees was, when was the last time you talked to your customers? And they're like, well, we kind of give them up to dates about our services and products. And I said, no. When did you talk to them about what they're going through? And so while we kind of think about our employees, it actually says the same 3 first questions are critical to your customers as well. How are you doing should be the first conversation. The second conversation, so what are your biggest challenges? What are you worried about right now? And then the second one, what is the challenges that we have for the future? What are you seeing and thinking about right now? In every case with the customers, we basically documented this information individually. When it came to the employees, we put all this information kind of together and kind of put it into sort of one big sort of mixing bowl and sort of pulled out what the biggest themes were. But for each customer, we actually created a separate list. And we were able to start to then have meaningful conversations with sort of our customers because we started to understand a pivot. And this is where every business today has to start thinking a little differently, is that when is this new normal going to happen and what does it look like? I'm not sure where you all sit with all of this, but there's the optimists that think this by September, we're going to be back to normal and nothing's going to change. The realists have to start thinking about, and based on we've been able to work with some pretty smart people and sort of planning, the best estimate we have is Q2 for 2021. And the reason we say Q sort of 2021 is to get through the winter and to start coming out when companies will start to have a better feeling of what a new norm looks like. And we're not even sure what that new normal is. So with that in mind, this is the time when you start to pivot yourself. And again, sort of we can talk Paul, Melcher, right now you're thinking about your set of skills. Becky, as a consultant, you start thinking about that. Start to think about how you're going to pivot towards this new normal. Listen, I have a training organization. We have 50 or 60 trainers that do live learning, classroom training, which pretty much overnight, over a matter of 2 days, millions of dollars of business came off the books. Within 2 weeks, we have pivoted to a completely virtual live workshop sessions and have started to offer that out. And what we've done is we've asked the final question to our customers and our employees, how can we help you? From an employee's perspective, a lot of it that came back was very much on the basic needs. As we started to pivot to companies and there was a lot of needs that they had, they realized that, through this time, we need to keep learning. And so as a result, and this kind of jumps to the end of generosity, we've started to pivot for virtual workshops that we have offered to our loyal clients. And in the end, we've actually offered it in some instances free of charge. Because again, taking a jump in, we asked these questions, we heard it, and we started to think, how are we going to be able to pivot our business? So we have in the last 2 weeks have done virtual workshops, not just to help our customers out, but actually to help us pivot our company. We've got 2 producers, 2 admins who have become the experts of Zoom. We've got 1 admin who's become the expert of Teams. What we've had to do is we've pivoted and we've created these mini experts with our new virtual reality and said, okay, how do we get really damn good at this? And so what we have to start to understand is that within our companies is that when it comes to our customers, what do we need to change up? We consulted with a big, and again, hotel here in Las Vegas, one of the MGM hotels. And we started to get them to reach out and ask this question of their customers. Hey, how can we help you? What are you missing the most? What they were able to do in a short amount of time is pivot to their loyal customers and started offering virtual cooking classes. The most popular class was, we did the spa team was putting together a whole different series of how to do nails, reminding how to, give yourself your best pedicure and manicure. And again, ladies, this may be something for the gentlemen as well. The hair, how to color your hair at home became the hottest virtual experience that we offered. So those are the type of surprises that we got because we asked them, what are their challenges? What are they missing? And how can we help them? And it's that pivot in the business that we found most interesting, that companies are going, well, if we're back to normal in a couple of months, it doesn't matter. The reality is that, and again, I'm hoping and praying that it's a couple of months. I just don't know how. And what I've been telling companies is don't wait 2 months and then suddenly have to kind of pick up and be behind the 8 ball. Think about how you can serve customers and employees today, but how you can give something to your customers, something that they find value, but at the same time, help you pivot your business model, that if this happens to drag out 6 months, 9 months, a year, that you are actually able to stay connected with your customers and then hopefully provide something of value. So that's curiosity and some of the pieces. So open it up to you guys. Questions, thoughts, commenting on that. Let's kind of go. Paul, start with you. Kind of jumped on. Paul, give us your thoughts on this. Again, you're out there as an independent right now. You're starting to look at this new world. What do you think?
Oh, I think your approach is right on. And here's the thing is with the setup that a lot of companies have, that they have the opportunity to educate and dedicate some time to their employees when it comes to training and make an even deeper commitment to the training and development of their teams and the individuals on their teams. With a lot of people are working from home, so as a result, they've given themselves back their commute time and added some efficiencies from working from home. So hopefully, if you have a company that is committed to training and development, that gives them additional, that door opens even a little bit further for them to commit to that.
It's a really important point, but you know what's interesting about learning and development? It's often at the bottom of the poll for most companies. It's the first thing that got cut. As soon as they knew that things were going to be tight, what did they do? They cut their training. What's interesting of what you said was that was one of the points, and it was one of the aha moments, because let's say they had 6,500 employees that were on furlough. They were paying them, but they were all sitting at home doing nothing. And so we sort of said, well, why wouldn't you offer learning and development? Why wouldn't you start to sharpen the score on some of that? And it was an interesting we didn't think about that kind of piece. And so what you're saying is exactly right. This is a tremendous opportunity with people. Let's face it, we work with a number of airports that, again, not as busy as they used to be. So employees have more time. So even if they're working, what we found is that downtime can be filled up with maybe some training, some learning. And listen, technology-based training is the hottest thing right now. It was already becoming big. Now it's at the forefront. But what we've also said is that this virtual, what is training? What's stopping a manager getting on with 3 or 4 people like we're doing today and just talking about ideas and teaching and getting people to open up their minds? So, Paul, what you said is there, and it's just, are companies actually utilizing this and seeing that opportunity? Well, I'll tell you, unless they're curious, they won't, because they think they know it all. Unless the employees are in work, things aren't going to get done. And I think it brings up another interesting element that we've been talking a lot about is all of a sudden companies traditionally have rejected remote working, flex hours, working from home, and yet if you look at the research from last year, it's probably the top or second most requested benefit from employees. So what's happened as a result? All of a sudden they've been thrown into this. How do you think they're reacting out there? And again, if you're not curious and talking to your employees about how this is working, those that have fears will continue to try and micromanage. Those that have, there's good leadership, have realized because they don't have commute times, because they don't have to sit around the water cooler talking all afternoon and taking longer breaks and all that, they're actually getting a lot of stuff done. So it's a kind of an interesting setup. Michael, what about for you? Curiosity, how does that kind of set? How could you use curiosity right now to help with your customers' experience?
Well, I work with a bank in Ghana, and whilst you're talking, what I was thinking of is you have your customers losing business, and so what do you do to help them, prop up their business? And so I'm just thinking, why don't we come up with some sort of virtual training for our customers, help them develop, how to basically, manage their business so well at this time of the, pandemic, so that, they do not lose the little customers they have, and also, maintain some stability with their supplies. By so doing, we stand to gain, because if they make money, they bring it back to the bank, and we are able to invest.
Listen, I've got the best bank story out there. As I said, I work with one of the biggest banks here in the US. We have all our business. We've got a lot of assets tied up with this bank. And again, we have, we talk a lot to the small local banks because, they're interested in our business, but we've always resisted because honestly, it's just easier to have a big bank with all the access to all the technical, digital. It's just been easier. What we found, and again, as a result of what happened, was one of the small local banks that we've been working, and they've been talking to us. They reached out to us and just asked us how we're doing, how they could help, what are the challenges. They actually spent this whole piece, and here in the US, there's the payroll protection plan, which some of you will be familiar with, that came out. And we'd sort of talk, well, we may use it, we're not sure anything about it. We reached out to our big bank. Again, small bank reached out to us, asked us some questions. The big bank, we reached out to and sort of said, hey, we're not sure, we're thinking about this PPE kind of piece. And they're like, all right, we'll get you some information when you want. All very transactional. PPP came out, small bank called us and said, hey, you guys interested? We've got all the information. We'd love to, put this through for you. And we're like, we're not sure. We called back our bigger bank and sort of said, all right, what do you guys know? I said, all right, we're going to get some information out to you. The big generic email came out. And it sort of said, we actually tested. So we actually applied through both banks, just out of interest. The small bank, within 3 days, had secured it, had talked us through everything we needed to know. The big bank sent us an email 5 days later saying there was a delay again, generic email, in getting everything done. What happened out of this? We are literally transferring our business to the smaller bank for no other reason than they were willing to take the time personally to get to know us and actually respected the fact that we had some needs. That's just a great lesson to be reminded about. And it was only because they reached out and they just asked that simple question. How are you guys doing? They didn't ask for business. But what they did is because of those questions, they started to reach out. They asked about PPP. They gave us information. And believe me, we weren't going to make a change. But that curiosity, the willingness to go, you know what, not everyone's in the same boat right now. I think it creates a tremendous opportunity for small businesses. I think it creates a tremendous opportunity to get ahead. And again, sometimes big companies just take their customers for granted. And as a result, those small companies can really start to create a sense of connection. So listen, I think it all starts with curiosity. And it's probably the number one thing we have talked about with all of our customers, everyone that we're consulting with right now. There is never a better time to learn. And when I say learn, that's because no one actually knows what's going on. So if someone could predict when the virus is going to be over and they're going to have a cure and they're going to have a vaccine and all of these things and we're going to be back to normal, I would love it. What I have learned in the last 2 months is no one has that information. Now, some people may be falsely kind of getting us confident that it's not a big deal. I don't think that's the case. And as a result, I think this opportunity to be curious is the number one thing that a business leader needs to have today and a business needs to put out in front of it. So something to think about. We know we've worked with a lot of our companies right now, and that ability to connect through curiosity has been pretty powerful. Anyone else got any sort of insights to something that they've done or might do to kind of create a connection with employees or their customers? Maria, we haven't heard from you. Any thoughts on that? Or Marla, I'm sorry. Keep looking Al in the eye. Marla, any thoughts? What about any of our other teams? Becky, Michael, Paul, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I don't have any specific, for me and my customers, but I'll kind of flip it around a little bit. For me as a customer, as a consumer, and I'll share an example, something that you kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, Shane. Just by way of example, I know many of the restaurants, for example, they understand that as we miss going to restaurants and having that experience. So there's a local, a very large Chinese food restaurant here in Massachusetts that's pretty well known in the area. And I found it genius that they're pretty sizable, have a nice footprint from a land perspective. They're actually putting in a drive-in that can accommodate 60 cars in the back of their lot. And they're kind of reverting back to the 50s, 60s, where they're going to have your food delivered to your car, alcohol, drinks, what have you, where you can watch a movie. And all the movie themes are going to be in the 80s. Yep. And it's just kind of going back to that old school type of mentality that for those of us who are baby boomers or I think the Gen X's, I can't remember, X of the, it's like, yeah, get back to basics. That will work for me. If I can't go inside of a restaurant and sit down at the bar, that can work. I'll do it. So I thought that was pretty genius, so that they were understanding their customers, keeping their employees employed, and kind of training them a bit differently.
Listen, I love it. And you asked that question, what are you missing the most right now? And again, the hotel did the same. That's when they came across well. And again, I'm going to be more sort of leaning towards, but their feedback from their loyal customers was, I'm missing hair coloring and getting to my hairstylist. And it was like, it was that aha moment of like, okay, how can we help? So I think this is kind of, the curiosity really sparks the other two traits. And I think this is kind of where you got to start to, because this is critical. Because I think so many times, and again, I go back to this, when you're curious, you want to learn, you don't believe you know it all. That is so important. Often, and again, I challenge even myself, I fall into this. When we talk to customers, even though we might ask the question, we still think we know what they want. We still think we're the experts in taking care of them. And sometimes when we're listening, we're not really listening. We're listening and doing some other stuff because we kind of know it. I kind of think of that we can kind of do this with our significant others, with our families sometimes. As I sort of said, I love the 5 types of listening. Ignoring, we'd never do that. But pretend listening, I've got kids. They do that all the time. And I often go, wait up, isn't that what we do with some of our customers? We're nodding our head, but we know what they need. Selective listening, kind of the same, only listening to what we want to listen to. So this is why I think it's really important in these times that we're doing empathetic listening, the highest form of listening. Taking a step in someone else's shoes and listening though for feelings and emotion, not just facts, not just transactions. What we need in this time is to understand and be willing, I would argue, share emotion. So let's kind of go back to you guys. Paul, what do you think? Why do you think the idea of hearing emotion and sharing emotion is so important these days, or at least in our current circumstance, but I would argue something we should carry on always?
Because it shows that it demonstrates that you have a care for the person and the individual, not just being cold and only having the business aspect in mind. So, and when you demonstrate that care, you hope that that rolls right down to how they're caring for your client.
Yeah, listen, there's a difference between a connection and a transaction. And again, as customers, I think we know when we get transacted, and I think we know when we get connected. You connect through emotion. And I know for some of us, that's kind of hard to sort of get around, but we connect through feelings. Often in business, we're told that feelings have to sit on the sidelines. We're like, leave the emotions at home. And this business is business. It sometimes has a very transactional element. In some of the more traditional industries, organizations, we still work with today. We work with BMW in the auto industry. Still very transaction. They're learning, they're getting there. Airlines, again, they just have a hard time with where's the emotion in this? So the idea of hearing emotion, I think, is where you truly start to understand needs. Because if you're not listening for emotion, you don't hear the anxiousness. You don't hear the confidence. You don't hear the hopefulness. You don't hear that sort of anxiety that can come out. That is where you truly start to see whether people show up. And I would argue right now, this is why it's important to hear this for your employees, hear this for your customers. They're used to the transaction. They're used to believing that even if they share some of their emotion, it's not going to get picked up on anyway. And then I would argue the other side, which I think is probably the bravest thing, maybe it's courage that you have to be able to do, is you have to be willing to share emotions with your employees and your customers too. So I want to put that question out. Why do you think, what is the benefit of you as a leader to share your feelings and emotions? Let's start with your employees. What do you think there? Becky, go with you first. Where's the benefit for the employees? Again, you're the manager. You meant to have all your shit together. But now we're saying be a little bit more vulnerable. Why?
Yeah, you just said the word, because I'm real. I'm just like them. I'm no different. I'm vulnerable. We're at the same level. Just because I may have a higher title, if you will, doesn't mean I'm not a human being, just like them.
You think that has benefit in what's going on right now?
Absolutely.
We're
all in this together.
Yeah. It's funny. I think that should be the slogan. In 2 companies we've talked to, it's like that's all they're putting in front of us. We're in this together.
Yeah.
And what you said is so important. We just have different responsibilities. Put the titles aside for a second. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you're willing to share, and I got to tell you, we work, I argue management and leadership is completely different. We have tons of managers in the workforce, very few leaders. I would say one of the biggest things is a manager does not believe that they should share emotions, feelings with their team, because they think that's not right. It's and again, not to put sort of onto the English element that we've got going on there, but the whole idea, sort of, Danny, that it can be we've got to keep a barrier between us and our employees. We got to keep that sort of barrier of what's going on. So what about with our customers? Because here we are, we're in transactions. So let's go, Michael. What do you think? Why should you be willing to share emotions with your customers and how you're feeling? Because now you seem to be really crossing the line. And yet, I would argue there's some really big benefits today.
Jane, first and foremost, we are all customers. Okay. At every given point, one becomes a service provider and the other becomes a customer. And so for me to show that level of empathy with my customer, I need to let them understand how I feel. Different from me. Because listen, as we sit, as we talk, we all have our emotional states. Okay. I'm looking at you, Abraham, I'm looking at you, Shane, and you look great, but I do not know what is behind the smoke screen. And so if you let me know, if you let me understand how you feel, then now I begin to connect emotionally with you.
So Michael, that's the perfect point. Here's what I would say though. If you come out and say, how are you feeling? It's very easy for some people to say, well, I'm fine. So the best way for you to get me to share about how I'm feeling is what? Be willing to share your feelings and emotions first.
Exactly.
And I think this is the change. I mean, we talk about relationship-based service, relationship-based selling. We've been teaching this, talking about it forever. It's one of the hardest things for people to get over. It's like, if you're serious about creating relationships, the number one thing is you have to get on that person's level. And the easiest way to get on someone's level is being willing to be vulnerable of yourself. Put the veneer and the bullshit and all that stuff. You know, we spend more time, employees spend more time at work hiding mistakes, vulnerabilities, weaknesses than any other thing. And it's not just employees, managers do it as well. You know, we talk a lot about, you know what, get through the bullshit. Stop being real. The only way to do that is if the manager or the leader starts to be real with their team first. Because an employee is like, I'm not going to, you know, share up. And again, I've seen this TV show before. I've seen this movie. It's the same with customers. And that's where I think there's such a unique opportunity right now. One, as I said before, people just want to talk. The fact that you're willing to listen is so powerful. And you know, we always say, just let them get it out right now. You'll be amazed at what it is, but you got to be willing to listen, put them in their shoes, try to understand their position. And then when you get it, when you have time to reflect back, don't reflect back the transaction and the things, reflect back the emotions that you heard. Hey, you know what? I heard you. I'm really anxious right now as well. I've got the same worries about my business. You know what? I'm not sure. It's crazy for me to not have all the answers today. That's scary for me. These are the type of things that I think will make you extremely powerful right now as a business leader. And for some people, this is kind of, they've done this. They've done it kind of selectively. They know that it's part of being a good leader. They know that being a good salesperson or services, they kind of know that. I would say that this has to be part of who we are. And while empathy, I know, is not natural for some people, the allowing people to talk, truly listening, putting yourself in their shoes, reflecting, and be willing to share your own concerns are those behaviors that I think people really needs to grasp and sort of to think about in terms of what they're doing in business today. And then I kind of go, if you're listening, then I think you've got an opportunity to be the next part, which is generous. Generosity is something that I think we love and we get an opportunity to do. And I would say that right now, the number one focus for a business is not what they're going to receive, because I think it's been the market's been upset. And I know it's very hard to say because businesses are being threatened. What they have to understand is that this is that moment of what can they give? What can they give? And from a very practical sense, as I talked about before, to be able to practice pivoting their business. As I said, I've been giving away free, my team have been giving away free workshops for the last 2 weeks. We've got great feedback. People love it. Everyone thinks it's for free. What it's done, though, is it's helped us, as I said before, to become really damn good at virtual training. Something that we dabbled in and done it, but we've gone full in. So again, that generosity of giving has also had the benefit of, we literally yesterday rolled out to some of our biggest customers a new idea about how to do virtual training in some office. And so, but it only came through generosity first. We're like, hey, we sat down as a group and said, all right, guys, what are we going to give away? What can we give? How can we give some value? You know what? We're training. Well, maybe there's an opportunity that we went back through. We have like 60 different courses. We went back and says, what do you think the ones that people would be most interested in? So let me hear from you guys. Marla, you were able to come off sort of there and sort of give us some insights. Why you think generosity, or how do you think generosity could have a really big impact or a positive impact on your business? I know Marla's out there because I see her. Just not sure if she's coming off. All right, we'll let you keep sort of listening. So, all right, well, let's go back to the well. All right, you guys are sort of engaging. So, Becky, what do you think? Again, when you think about different businesses or even of yourself, how does generosity, how can it have a positive outcome in these times?
It's an act of kindness, and kind of it's giving. It's putting your hand out there, and if hopefully the other person will take it, and just trying to make a difference for everyone. Everyone's in a very challenging position these days, so I know on a daily basis I try to act with kindness and be mindful of how others are impacted as a result, and try to give a little bit extra than I would normally do, and I hope the same of others as well.
Yeah, and I think it starts to create that kind of hopefully sort of building momentum. Paul, what about you? Again, Paul's in an interesting position. He's kind of freelancing right now. Think about your set of skills right now. What could you offer a company right now, or have thought about offering them, where you go, you know what? There is this, I can offer value in this way, but at the same time, you're now building reputation and brand. What can you do?
I think you have to look and see what differentiates you, and then you have to prioritize that and what I do in preparation for my next step. And it would be easy to sit back and not take advantage of opportunities like this. And those are the things that you have to bring to the table when you're meeting with folks. What did you do during this time? How did you take advantage of the time that you may not have had in the past? And how did you keep your skill set sharp? And really, how did you grow as an individual during this time?
So Paul, but one of the things you talked about, you've got an expertise in call centers, and again, how could you offer out? I mean, again, and I put myself into your shoes, or I put what we have done. We went out to customers. We went out to every hotel in Las Vegas and said, hey, we built a reopening plan. We're giving it to you for free. Think about that. And what it did is actually created some interesting new opportunities for us. But think about, I've got expertise. And again, I know there are certain businesses that would value that expertise. So let me be generous right now. And I'm just going to send you a note and go, hey, I'm willing to do some consulting, some training. I'm just doing it for free right now because I know we're getting in. What that does, it starts to get your brand and reputation, may start to get some new introductions. It's amazing that in this time where I go, you know what, no one's paying for live learning right now, but how can I create an opportunity in the coming months as things get back to normal? I mean, Michael, what about you and the banks? Again, I go, banks have an expertise. What could you offer, or what do you think your customers could really benefit or value from you right now more than anything else?
All right, so just want to add to what Becky and Paul said. At this point in our lives, giving shows strength. Okay, the fact that you're giving doesn't mean you have in excess, but you acknowledge the fact that, I have a little. I need to stretch out my hand and help somebody else survive. Now, back to your question, Shane. For us in Ghana, I mean, the major issue has to do with loans. Businesses need loans in order to survive.
Yep.
And if they're going to take the loans because of the challenges, your interest rate must be very reasonable. And so what my bank is doing basically has been to reduce the interest rates in such a way that, the small and medium scale enterprises can afford. And so basically that's what we're doing. But that is not to say that as a business, we have in excess, but we appreciate the fact that we need these businesses to thrive so that we can also survive.
So I would take that. I think it's an interesting situation. So let me go to the bank. What you have is an expertise. You says, to your customers, there's a loan need. So one of the first things that I would offer generously is time, which means, have you thought about setting up maybe education classes for small companies about loans, about budgeting, some of those things that small companies don't often have, a large accounting team. Ultimately, you want them to get to a loan, but to get them there right now, the biggest thing, and I go back to my bank story before, The small bank took the time to educate us through the PPP and some of these other elements that, quite honestly, I was surprised about. And so there's that education. And what I say is, because when we talk about generous, it's not about giving things away in terms of money and in terms of that. I think the generosity comes in terms of our time. It comes in terms of us giving of our time and our expertise and thinking about, ultimately, can this open up new opportunities, new customers, possibly take us into a new line of business, because we had this initial kind of idea and that willingness to give of ourselves. I think everybody has an expertise. I think the one thing that is so valuable is the time. So be giving of time, giving of expertise, and helping to educate people or helping them to get through certain things, I think is really incredible right now. And I think that's a real opportunity that companies have to sit down or individuals sit down and go, what do I have? What can I give? I'm not as busy as I usually am right now. And who are the people or the businesses that might appreciate it? And let me reach out to them. Again, what do they say is no? Okay, but that's fine. I'm amazed in the last 2 weeks since we've started to do this, how many companies says, really? You guys would do that? I go, sure. I mean, one of our biggest clients, United Airlines, all the business, our largest contract disappeared overnight. You know, we reach back out to them and we deliver a lot of the live learning for them for leadership development. We reach back out to them and says, listen, I know you got no budget, you know, your whole learning and development thing's gone to the side. We said, listen, we have all this content that you pay for that we created for you. We're going to turn some video. We have a little studio area. We're going to just create videos for you so you can send this out to their managers. First, they were surprised. Then, and by the way, they owe us a lot of money. So it's not like I'm kind of going, okay, this is not an easy one. But at the time, what's happened since then, in the last week, one of the senior executives from United reached out to me, who's not part of the HR or learning and development operations side, and just said, thanks. And what it reminded me about is that, and that was just being a little generosity. Quite honestly, I had trainers sitting in the production area, like, no big deal. But they reached out and just said, thanks. And what I know, and again, what I believe, because I spoke to the head of learning yesterday, they said, you know what? That one small idea or act means that we will always look to you guys for business when we come back online. And so, yes, there's a little bit of me that was like hoping that might happen, but it wasn't sort of the reason we did it. But those are the benefits right now and the opportunities that I really do believe exist, particularly on our customer side. Employees, we kind of touched on it earlier, getting them some learning, some training, some connection. You know, this company like ours, there's so much free stuff that seems to be floating out there right now, but connecting your employees to it. And again, one of the other pieces that I found really fascinating is policies. You know, the flex or work from home policy, which companies, I tell you, have struggled with. All of a sudden, they've been thrown into it. You know, one of the biggest opportunities they have is to start thinking about, is this the new norm, and why can't employees work from home or have more flex hours as we sort of go down this. So generosity, and again, it's not about one or the other, it's about all three together. Because being generous and not understanding needs kind of is just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. So you start with curiosity, open up your mind, be willing to learn, be willing to kind of say, you know what, I don't know anything right now. Let me just find out. Let me find out how my employees and customers are doing. Let me find out what they're most looking forward to. Let me work out how I can do that and start to structure and think about how I can pivot. As I'm doing curious, I'm really trying to listen for the emotions. I'm listening for the strain, the anxious, the traumatic, you know, the things that really are getting people and hurting people right now, to try and understand, because that's where the biggest need is, even if they don't tell us that. And then, as I said, the generosity is like, listen, I don't have many things that I think I'm good at, but I'm really good at teaching. I'm really good at certain things. So yeah, we've been offering to some companies to put a culture strategy together for what happens when they come back. We've been offering free virtual to leaders, some free stuff to employees. Quite honestly, because I'm like, I might as well, at least I'm keeping everyone busy while we sort of keep them sort of employed. And even though there's not much business going on right now, I truly believe that the act of kindness and generosity right now is important and truly can have some big benefits. So that's what I was talking about today. And again, probably nothing rocket science. But I really do believe that as a business leader, it's your responsibility to really think about the behaviors and exhibit them for those that you want to follow. So as you had an opportunity to kind of listen today, I'd really urge you to kind of talk about these behaviors and traits and thinking, and start to share that with your peers and get them to think about it. After this, we'll make this PowerPoint available so you can kind of go through it. But it's not about teaching you anything. It was really the purpose of today was just to get us talking, maybe get you thinking a little bit around the behaviors, the habits, and the things that you might be able to do that I think will have an impact, whether it's with your employees or your customers today. So that's kind of it for me. I'm not sure if I've got a few minutes. I mean, if there's any questions, thoughts out there to sort of take us through. Becky, we'll start with you. Thoughts to kind of finish us up on, questions you might have.
No, I don't have any questions, but just my thoughts is it's great to kind of have this as a refresher, kind of back to basics. So it's good to be mindful of this, writing the curiosity, empathy, and generosity down. It's kind of like a checklist to be, looking at each morning throughout the day, and making sure I'm, continuing to follow those three, because it is so important, especially these times that we're dealing with and living in.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, family and friends as well. They need some of that curiosity. I'm a parent and I think I know it all, but I really don't right now as I become teacher and virtual kind of coordinator. So listen, I've always believed curiosity was one of the best, most important leadership traits. I just think it is the most important now in these current times. So Becky, thanks for sharing. Yeah. Michael, what about you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, I think I'm fine. I mean, you said it all. I'm fine.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, thank you again for joining in. And as I said, keep things going down there in Ghana, man. They need you.
Thank you.
Paul, how you doing? Good. Any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, doing great. I guess I'm challenged to find the organization that has embraced these things before our society has been impacted as it has by this pandemic. And really, I'm looking for the organization that has embraced these concepts and these types of ways of doing business prior to the situation that we're in now. And I think that those organizations are the ones that sustain client relationships and also employee retention.
Yeah, you're so right. And listen, you're out there as a free agent right now. So think about these. What can I offer to the world? What is my expertise? Reach out to companies right now, whether it's a full-time gig or a part-time. I tell you, this is a great opportunity for you to get your brand and that sort of organized. So thank you. Marla, I'm not sure if you're still there. So again, any thoughts, questions? I know we've got the chat that can always be used if need be. Okay. And I know Kimberly, you just jumped on. Nice to see you there for the last few minutes. But Abraham, I think that's kind of everything that we've got today. It was a good session. Yeah. Group as always.
As usual, it's been very good, and I want to thank everybody for participating. And I think that these types of sessions, they're not like the normal webinars that we used to have too. We're starting to see those to pivot more to like, these virtual roundtables where people are, rather than being passive attendees, they're being participants, active participants in these, and bringing a lot of value to these conversations here, and especially those people who could make it and are watching the replay. So, we hope that you got a lot out of it. We have a lot of stuff that's coming your way. If we're going to have a Culture Hacker Training 2 is going to be coming out. We're good for the next round of the Culture Hackers. We'll let you know more about that when we send out. And then we have some more surprises we'll be sending your way as well as we are developing these things. So Shane, as usual, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
It's been awesome. I just want to add something a little bit, because I sit quietly, I don't say much, but the curiosity part, which I like, that is, when you talk about the leadership part, is that you don't have to know. That's the tool you pull out of your pocket, is that when you don't know something, just be curious. You don't have to know anything. It is such a good tool to use. And And I appreciate you bringing that out. So, well, thank you everybody for coming, and that's it.
Thanks, everyone. We'll
Thank
see you
you,
soon.
Abraham.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, Michael. Hey, we got a test coming out soon, and I know you're going to pass that test with flying colors, and to be the culture, probably the first culture hacker on the African continent. There you go. All right, yeah, and you're going to get a certificate. You can put it up at your bank over there, and we're really proud of you, man.
Thank you, Abraham.
Okay, sure. Now we have people showing up.
I know. All right, everyone.
Thank you very much. All right, bye-bye. See what happened there. There we go. Hang on. Oh, Kimberly finally got her Kimberly, welcome. We just had the session here. We're sorry that you missed it, but at least you came anyway. But we'll have the replay that we'll send out to you. You wanted to unmute and say hello before we leave? Are you able to do that? Okay. Deborah, how about you?
Hello.
Hi. Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hey. Hi.
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 Hi, everyone. So I'm disappointed that I'm here this late, and we're probably at the tail end of things. But I'm working. Well, I'm not actually working. I'm networking here, obviously, to find my next role and opportunity. And a life event happened just as I was getting ready to log in. My puppy escaped. So
okay.
I've been running down the main street looking for my puppy, and I so apologize, guys. It's not the way I really wanted to introduce myself. But I still wanted to log in and just tail in. You were probably at the end of everything, but hi everyone, and it's great to meet everyone.
Well, thank you. We're glad that they say better than late than never. So we're glad you came on board, and we do have the replay that we'll be sending you, and also too we have if you've been following are you in the culture hacker training by any chance?
No. I'm recently just part of a company. The company I was working for just had some downsizing. Finally, the COVID-19 really started to rethink, so there's some restructuring going on. So I've landed myself out here looking for a new opportunity, trying to keep myself as best busy as possible. And I miss people. Being that operations manager and having a staff of like 50 plus people to just managing myself is no fun. So I really wanted it. I've been joining a lot of, groups like this, and just getting in. It's just nice to see people and talk to people and share our thoughts on what's going out there right now, what's happening with the customer impact and where we're all going and how other people are coping with just work at home and all of that great stuff. So
sure. No, we appreciate that, that you
thanks for dropping in.
Definitely. But we have that, since you have some time, the culture hacker training is free. So we're with one of the things that Shane was talking about was generosity. This is one of the three traits that it was curiosity, empathy, and generosity were those three traits. You'll learn more about those things. But so what Shane's trying to do is he's just doing his part, and we've got this fabulous free training that I think that you would enjoy. We'll send you out for round 2, see if that's something that you'd enjoy. Kimberly, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, and being part of our community, we have more webinars and roundtables coming out that you can participate in. So I see in the chat, Kimberly says, just learning as much as I can about the things I had my fingers in for the last 35 years, self-employed and now injured husband. Well, may your husband have a complete and speedy recovery. I'm sorry to hear that I'm sure that's no fun. But we appreciate that you came here, and just let your husband know that, that we're thinking about him, we're praying that he should have a speedy and help and complete recovery. So, bad back. Oh, I know that one. Oh, yeah. That I had a herniated disc. That's like, wow. It's like when you have bad back, you can't think of anything. So, yeah, great. All right. Well, thank you, folks. We're gonna sign out right now, and yes, Kimberly, you'll get the replay on that. And if you have any questions or any, please feel free to reach out to Shane, to me, whatever you want to do, and we'll be happy to get back to you for sure. Okay.
All right, everyone. Take care.
All right. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys again.
Thank you.
Yeah.